To Après Midi. It is the end of the year, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of glad 2025 is coming to an end.
Me too.
And yeah, it's been a hell of a year, and looking forward to the holidays. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful time in vacation, especially if you're here in Paris for all the beautiful lights. But meanwhile, I've got Whitney Cubbison here, which I'm really thrilled about. She's a dual American and French citizen, living in Paris since 2009. Not as long as me, but very respectable.
Getting up there, getting up there.
She grew up in Texas and California and graduated from UCLA with a degree in French.
Yes.
Et tu parles français?
Bien
Très, très bien.
sûr.
Okay.
Merci.
She started her career in communications, working for high-tech PR agencies in San Francisco, eventually joined Microsoft, where she worked for 16 years, 13 of which from here in the Paris office. During that time, she held various international roles that encompassed public relations, employee communications, executive speech writing, and social media. She earned her French citizenship in early 2022 and left Microsoft in the summer of that year to focus on completing her first novel, Will There Be Wine?, which is hilarious. Okay, et voilà.
Et voilà.
May I present Whitney Cubbison?
All right, thank you so much for the intro. I'm very happy to be back for Après Midi. Thank you so much for having me. I was here last summer in a thunderstorm, and I had the thunder was like the dramatic accompaniment of my speech, and so we won't have that this time, but we're still going to try to make it dramatic and fabulous. So I'll start. Adrian introduced me a little bit. I was a French major. I have been here for 16 years. I came to Paris because I actually did my junior year abroad in Lyon. And I picked Lyon for the same reason that I picked studying French. Growing up in Texas, everybody takes Spanish, and I kind of always just was a bit of a rebel and wanted to do the other thing. So I picked Lyon because everybody went to Paris, but then when I was in Lyon, I was like, there's a reason everybody goes to Paris. And one day I must get there and live and work there. And so I came in 2009 on a 2-year expat contract with Microsoft, and then I just refused to leave, basically. So I've been here for 16 years. I did leave Microsoft in summer of 22. It was not exactly my choice to do that. There was a reorg, as it happens. I was on the short end of that stick, and at that point I had already finished the first draft of my second book. The second draft of my first book. Makes more sense, right? The second draft of my first book. So when I was let go from Microsoft, I went, well, now seems like a pretty good time to go ahead and finish that novel.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. And so it's interesting because when I wrote the first book, it is a romantic comedy. It is about the dating misadventures of an American expat in Paris. It is deeply inspired by real events. So basically, at the time, I did move here married. I got divorced 2 years after I moved here and started dating Frenchmen, and mostly it just went horribly wrong. And so I had one just sort of ridiculous date after another, and all of my friends at the time were like, you know what, you have to write a book. Like, you cannot make this shit up. It's just a little too crazy. And so I started writing it, not necessarily knowing if it would become a book, but just saying, okay, let me put down the real stuff, what's actually been happening, and see where it goes. And by the time it all was down on paper, the real stuff, I was like, well, I got a lot to work with here. And so then I had to figure out how to turn it into a novel. And so I like to say that I sort of project managed my life into a book, because it's almost like 70% of the book basically is stuff that really happened to me. And I figured out how to string it together, do fiction. I worked with a freelance book editor, 2 of them actually, on the first book to make it great. And what was super interesting about that process is what I learned, having spent my career in corporate communications writing for Microsoft. Tech PR is about summary, brevity, and distilling the complex into the simple. And these skills serve you not at all as a novelist. And so I basically had to unlearn everything that I had been doing for my whole career to figure out how to write a novel. And when you're writing something that's based on your life, you tend to start by just vomiting your life out onto the page and then, figuring out what to do with it later. And so this editor that I worked with was magical. And she actually took my second draft, and I hired her to copy edit, which there's lots of different kinds of editing. Copy edit is like punctuation and formatting and inconsistencies. So she said, if you say on page 10 that he took off his shirt and on page 16 that he rolled up his sleeves, I'll catch that. Which is important because it's all written in pieces and you're bound to miss those sorts of things. And so I had hired her for this copy edit, and she missed the deadline. So on the day that I was expecting to get my book back, it didn't come. So I wrote her and I was like, hi, where's my book? And she was like, yeah. The thing is, she said, I loved your story so much that I didn't want to miss an opportunity to help make it great. And so I've gone in and done a partial line edit. Now, a line edit is literally line by line feedback on how it can be better. And she had line edited kind of a random third of the book. And when I read those edits, I was like, oh, that's how you write a book. And it was so amazing. She was so incredible. I've now worked with her on both of these, and I'm working with her now on the third one, which I'll come back to. But that whole process was really so amazing, and it gave me such energy, and I really loved the process. But even still, when I finished that first book and published it, I didn't necessarily consider myself a writer because, like I said, I think I had just project managed my life into a book. And I didn't intend really on writing a second one. And then something happened, which was one of the very big book clubs in the US was looking at my first book as a possible pick for the book of the month. And it was incredibly exciting. And it all fell through, and it didn't happen. But what was amazing about that was while that was in play, which actually took over a year for them to eventually say no, very annoyingly, but while that was happening, I was like, I better write another one, because if they pick this one, that's going to be the first question is what's next? And so without that unfortunate series of events, I don't think I would have written the second one. And I'll come back to the second one in a minute, but I thought I'd start with doing a little reading from the first one. So, like I said, this is Will There Be Wine? This is the first book. It is a rom-com, and it is about these dating misadventures. And so there are 3 chapters in the book called The Internet, Internet Round 1, Internet Round 2, Internet Round 3. And each of these rounds of things, it's a blog that she's writing about her miserable dates. And I read one last time. I'm going to read a different one. So Adrian gets a little variety for her YouTube channel. And so this one I am going to start with is from the first round. It's called Pierre the Mansplainer.
Sorry, I already know it's funny.
I like it. I like it.
Okay, never mind.
All right. Part 1. Let me start by owning the fact that this story truly should not have 2 parts. It should have been a one and done, but I was having an off day and got blindsided. It happens, right? I met Pierre at 7 p.m. at Le Bombardier near the Sorbonne. I was already seated when he arrived, looking flustered. He said bonjour and then quickly told me that the zipper on his jacket was stuck. He couldn't get out of it and asked if I could help. Because I have tiny fingers, he said. The guy seriously asked, as his opening line, for me to help with his zipper. It wasn't his pants, but still. I took one look at the jacket zipper and knew it wasn't coming unstuck, so suggested he just slip it off over his head. I watched as he awkwardly wiggled himself out of his jacket, tossing it onto the chair and setting it onto our table. What a weird start. I ordered a glass of Bordeaux. He ordered tea. Who drinks tea at 7 p.m. on a date? In retrospect, I should have left immediately, based on that choice alone. He then proceeded to rapid-fire questions at me for the next 54 minutes. I clocked it. The questions were about my work, my studies, my family, my expat life in France. I never had the chance to ask him anything because I was apparently being interviewed for a job, the job of being his girlfriend. But it turns out it wasn't so much an interview as it was a pre-screening. After these strange 54 minutes, he put some money on the table, quickly stood up and said, "Well, this has been fun. You're interesting. I have a dinner to get to, but I'd like to see you again. How's Saturday?" Had my brain been firing at full speed, I could have, would have, should have simply said, "No merci," and put myself out of the impending misery. But as mentioned, I was having an off night. I uneasily agreed while he clumsily struggled to get his zipped up jacket back over his head. None of it was graceful. "Great, I'll text you," he said as he bolted out the door. I sat there stunned for a solid minute, wondering what the hell had just happened, and then resigned myself to part deux. Part 2. Saturday arrived, and Pierre suggested that we meet at the Grand Boulevard Metro. In my experience, meeting at a metro stop means the guy has no plan. So we inevitably spend the first 20 minutes of the date wandering around, usually on cobblestones with me in heels, to find an acceptable spot. Between this and the less than auspicious part 1 of this encounter, I was not jazzed about the evening, but at this point, I was committed. I got on the metro, and while en route, he texted to say he was going to be 15 minutes late. It was raining, so I asked, always hopeful, if he had a place in mind. I suggested I could head directly there rather than waiting at the metro stop in the rain. I ended the text with a smiley face because emojis soften it, right? He replied saying he didn't have a place in mind, but maybe he would only be 5 minutes late after all. Subtext, "You'll wait in the rain. Deal with it." Charmed, I'm sure. I huddled under the awning of the metro station until he arrived and we emerged into the rain together. We wandered into 2 places that were fully booked before eventually landing at a small Italian restaurant that was completely devoid of charm. The fact is that on Saturday night in Paris, reservations are required for any place that's even remotely nice. I wasn't expecting a Michelin star, but I do appreciate it when someone takes the time to actually plan a date. Is that so much to ask? We were looking over the menu when he proclaimed, "They have ravioli, you know, the pasta with stuff inside." There was an accompanying hand gesture to demonstrate the putting of stuff into the pasta pocket. Or was he pantomiming sex? I instinctively cocked my head to the side like a dog trying to understand its human. Did he really just mansplain ravioli to me? All this happened in French, of course, so I took an extra second or 2 to be sure I understood what was happening. When my brain confirmed that it was the disaster it seemed to be, it was too late for a snarky reply, so I simply went with, "Yeah, sure, ravioli." I somehow managed to keep my exaggerated eye roll on the inside. Suffice it to say, the conversation didn't improve, so by the time dinner was over, I was desperate to escape. I told him I'd take the metro home, and because he lived in the same direction, he said he'd join me. It was my lucky night. In the metro, he asked if I was a natural redhead. I told him I was not. He then mansplained, because you know, there are natural redheads in the world. Yes, dear readers, he mansplained ravioli and redheads in the course of 90 minutes and then asked if I wanted to go home with him. I did not. So that was one from the first round. So when I put all these dates down on paper, I was thinking like, okay, do I want this book to be just a little bit of slapstick, or do I want it to have kind of more of a meaning, and what's the red thread that sort of pulls all this through? And it was a couple things. It was about getting to know yourself, getting to know what you want, getting to be comfortable with that, owning that, and also about female friendship. That was a big theme in both books. And so for each of the sort of subsequent rounds of the internet things, with each chapter, she was kind of getting more comfortable with saying who she really was, what she really wanted, and not just signing up for anybody who was willing to sign up for her. And so I thought I would do another quick reading which references this date from the second part of the internet round 2, where she puts in place a list of rules for her screening. Actually, before I do this, anybody in the room been on a dating app? Raise a hands. Yeah, okay, so we can relate, right? There's a lot of pictures where you're just like, gosh, somebody needs to counsel this poor gentleman on like what not to do. And so this list was written for him. So this is kind of the beginning of the internet round 2. So back in Paris, meaningful in real life encounters continued to evade her. So to the internet, she reluctantly returned for a second round. The blog audience was waiting after all. She revisited her online dating profile and decided to get a bit more real about who she really was. She added Stanford as her alma mater, which was a cautious step towards reality. Most French guys have probably never heard of it, she told herself. If they haven't, it won't matter, and if they have, maybe it could even be a plus. Surely some French guys are attracted by intelligence. The hope was confirmed when she noticed the word sapiosexual appearing in some men's profiles. It meant they were turned on by intelligence. That's a concept I can get behind, she thought. She had also spent time reflecting on her learnings from her last stint online. So to her initial list of rules, she decided to add 4 more. This is the full list. She restarted the blog by sharing the full set along with some color commentary. The rules. I'm back, dear readers. The real-life Parisian meet-cutes just aren't happening, so I've reinstalled the evil dating app. As I head into round 2, I thought I would share my rules for how I try to weed out the undateable based on their profile pictures. I'm trying to make a science of this. Ignore it at your own peril. Do not go out on dates with guys who have any of the following. Number 1, multiple car selfies. This is clearly vanity run amok. Number 2, the in-bed shot. One guess what he's after. Number 3, the shirtless bathroom mirror selfie. Especially when these are all real things. The shirtless bathroom mirror selfie, especially when the bathroom is gross. Number 4. Number 4, nothing but selfies. Does he have any friends? Also, see comment to rule number 1. Vanity run amok. A hat and or sunglasses in every picture. Is he in witness protection? He's definitely hiding something. Number 6, smoking in any picture. Kissing a smoker is like licking an ashtray. Am I right? Yeah. Number 7, posing with his kids in his first picture. Can we decide if we like the guy before we have to like his progeny? Later photo with kids is okay. That's good disclosure. Number 8, posing with a tiger or large cat of any kind. It's shocking how many of these exist. Number 9, posing with a woman who clearly isn't marked as his relative or best friend. Quite a few couples seem to be using dating apps to find threesomes. Is this a French thing or universal? Insights from my readers are welcome here. Number 10, the thoughtful pose with the chin on the fist. You know the one. Number 11, proposes meeting at the metro stop. No plan equals no date. For the sharp-eyed amongst you, you'll notice that rule number 11 has nothing to do with profile photos and more to do with dating etiquette. This rule was put in place after Pierre the Mansplainer. Please refer back to entry from March 5th, and you'll understand why. I reserve the right to add additional rules to this list as my dating disasters continue. Your suggestions are welcome. Into the abyss I return with these rules as my guide. Pray for me. So, that was the first book. It was all a bunch of dating misadventures, dating disasters, real life encounters as well, so not just the apps. She is, looking for love, stumbling through it. She does find love. So in all good romance novels that are targeted at an American audience, the rule is there must be a happy ever after. There is an acronym for that, an HEA. You must have an HEA in a romance novel. It's a rule. If you don't, they get really mad at you. So she does end up with someone, and for the purposes of not spoiling that little adventure, I will now talk about the second book with the guy has a code name in this conversation to avoid spoilers. I call him Keanu. So Austin, who is the me character, ends up with Keanu. And so then Will There Be Love is a sequel. It starts about 1 month after the end of Will There Be Wine. And the main character of this book is named Ophelia, and she is Keanu's first love. So Ophelia and Keanu were college sweethearts. She is now married to Gianluca, who's an Italian dude. They live in Rome. They have 2 kids. And you find out in the prologue that Gianluca is cheating on her with her colleague, who she thinks is her friend. So suffices to say quickly, while the first one was rom-com, this one is rom-dram. So it is a very different book. It is a standalone sequel. And so if you don't like comedy or you don't like dating stories, you can still enjoy this book without having read the first one. So it's the story of Ophelia and Gianluca Austin and Keanu. It's 4-part narrator, so you hear about the events from all 4 of their perspectives. And this book is really about love and where it starts and where it ends and what builds it and what breaks it, but told through the lens of these 2 couples that are in very different places in their relationship. So Austin and Keanu are just falling in love, and Ophelia and Gianluca are 12 years married, 2 kids, relationship in crisis. And so they end up in a villa in Ibiza for Ophelia's 40th birthday party. The 4 of them and 4 other people, including the mistress. And so she shows up at the villa for the 40th unexpectedly. She was supposed to cancel at the last minute, but then she shows up. There's much drama that ensues. Again, there's a big theme about friendship. So Keanu and Ophelia are still very good friends. He's actually godfather to one of their kids. And so it's the whole kind of juxtaposition of all of this, you know, the ups and downs and crazy roller coaster that is love. And I actually got, this one, thankfully, is 100% fiction. It was not inspired by real events. The idea came to me while I was thinking of this book club that I mentioned earlier. Okay, I need to write another book. I was on the beach with a girlfriend in Sardinia, and she told me that her parents had never told her that they loved her. And so as a result, she was now having a hard time saying, I love you to her partner and her kid. And it broke my heart so much that I was really thinking about love and how it can either lift you up or fuck you up depending on how it shows up in your life. And so I wanted to write about that and about all of that kind of drama and also all the different kinds of love. Because as someone who is chronically single and a romance writer, there's a bit of a strange thing in there about looking for love and looking for love in ways that maybe aren't exactly putting romantic love at the top of the hierarchy. And so I wanted to look at platonic love between friends. I wanted to look at familial love between family members. And I wanted to look at romantic love too and explore kind of how someone could build a life that includes all of those things, or some 2 of 3, or 1 of 3, in a way that still creates a fulfilling life. So that was kind of what I was going for on this one. It was a very different, like I said, very different book. But I thought I'd do a little reading from that one too, give you a taste of it. So this one, the girlfriends that I mentioned, the friends characters from the first book carry over into this one. So Austin and Keanu and the girls all still live in Paris. Jean-Luc and Ophelia live in Rome. So this one starts and ends in Rome. There's some Paris in between, but then most of it takes place at that villa. And so this first one that I'm going to read to you is from a dinner in Paris, where the girls are getting together, and Austin and Keanu have been dating for about a month. And I did go through and actually cross out his name and put Keanu in here so I don't screw it up in the reading, because I don't want anybody to get spoilers. So here's the girls. What about you, Austin? Where's the next trip? Chiara asked, twisting her brown hair up into a ponytail. For work, it's New York next week, but more interestingly, Keanu is taking me to Rome next week for our first weekend getaway, Austin said with a smile, before her expression quickly shifted into a frown. He wants me to meet his ex-girlfriend who lives there, Ophelia. Is that weird? The question had been spinning around in her mind since Keanu's invitation, and she'd been anxiously awaiting her friend's input. Over the years, they'd never let her down when she needed honest, objective opinions to balance out her hopes and fears. Daphne raised her hands into a T-shape. Time out. Going to need some more info here. Your first weekend getaway together is to go hang with his ex-girlfriend? Austin pointed at Daphne with her fork and screwed up her face. His first love, more precisely. They dated briefly at university, and now he's godfather to one of her kids. So this Ophelia is married? Isabel asked. And Italian? Chiara inquired, looking confused. Ophelia doesn't sound Italian. She's married, yes, Italian husband. She's a Brit, Austin explained. One of my people, Isabel smiled, putting her hand over her heart. But I will absolutely hate her if you want me to. Just say the word. Austin counted herself incredibly lucky to have friends like these. Women who offered unconditional support and love in the face of any challenge. As expats living far from their blood relatives, they had become family to each other. He assures me their romance is ancient history, and she's now one of his best friends, so he wants us to meet, Austin continued. I guess it's sweet. Daphne nodded. He wouldn't be pushing you two together if there was any room for drama. Just roll with it, and use it as an opportunity to get some dirt from her on him, if there is any in that squeaky clean-seeming guy's past. From what Keanu had shared in their first month together, his past seemed remarkably free of red flags, which made Austin nervous. In her experience, anything that seemed too good to be true usually was, so she was proceeding with caution, emotionally speaking. She wanted to trust him, wanted to fall headlong into love with this man who truly seemed to be everything she'd been waiting for, but fear held her back. Isabel waved her hand in front of Austin's face. "Hello, Earth to Austin. I can see your wheels turning. Stop overthinking. It's the enemy of joy," she declared. "Your boyfriend is sweeping you away to Rome for the weekend. It's fabulous." "I agree. It's sweet, and I'm sure this Ophelia won't be a problem. And he gets extra points for taking you to Italy," Chiara added. "I told him you'd say that," Austin laughed, and then grew serious, smoothing out the tablecloths with her fingertips. He also mentioned maybe going away for one of the holiday weekends in May, which feels so far away, doesn't it? "May is basically tomorrow," Daphne replied, wiping up olive oil with a stray piece of focaccia. "You just think it sounds far away because you haven't dated anyone longer than 5 minutes since Brad, so planning for a holiday months away scares you." Austin threw her hands up in wonder. "How do you know me so well?" Daphne shrugged, looking smug. "I just do." "I think it's great that he's planning for things months in advance," Isabel said. "It means he's serious about you, which we knew since he's already done the rounds and met us all. Things are going well, aren't they?" "Yes, he's wonderful. I'm excited. But I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. With me, it usually does," Austin lamented. Chiara pointed at Austin with her wineglass. "It sounds like your excitement about this trip might be anxiety in disguise. Also, sidebar, stop associating shoes with anxiety. Shoes are happiness." Austin didn't consider herself anxious, but Chiara's comment struck a chord. It had been years since she'd been in a solid relationship. She realized she hadn't fully relaxed around Keanu yet. "Oh my God, I'm Cinda-fucking-rella," Austin exclaimed. "She obviously left that glass slipper behind while fleeing in a rush of anxiety." Daphne cocked her head to the side. "I think I missed something. How did this turn into a Disney princess story?" "Roll with me for a second," Austin pleaded. "Keanu and I have been together for a month, and most of the time, it's wonderful. I'm Cinderella, twirling and whistling through a forest with little cartoon animals happily frolicking at my feet. But sometimes he looks at me so intensely that I want to bolt, leaving the proverbial glass slipper in my wake." Chiara harumphed. "I maintain that you need to disassociate shoes from your anxiety, but in all seriousness, what makes you want to bolt?" Austin paused and lifted her eyes to the ceiling, as if an answer might be hovering there. "Has no one else noticed that those twirling Disney princesses are always singing alone? Serious question. Was Cinderella happy because things with her prince were going great? Or was it because she finally had some time to herself, or with her adorable forest friends?" "You can have your me time and your friend time and be with him," Isabel pointed out. "You have to be intentional to get the balance right, but if anyone can make it work, it's you, my friend." "I've gotten used to life on my own terms," Austin confessed. "Being part of a couple means compromise, and that freaks me out. I don't want my world to revolve around him." Daphne rolled her eyes. "Did he ask for that?" Pouting, Austin admitted he had not. "It's only been a month. Give it time," Chiara said. "Enjoy the honeymoon phase. Wear the damn glass slippers. Go to Rome. And deal with the red flags if they show up or someone turns into a pumpkin." "Good plan," Austin nodded. "What about you gals? Any news?" "I've joined a climbing gym near my office," Chiara announced, sitting up straighter in her chair. "Figured it's a great place to meet men, and those harnesses make my ass look incredible. Very lifting." "Sounds like a brilliant plan," Daphne laughed. "Somebody around here should be sporty." Austin raised her pointer finger. "I read the other day on Instagram, the definitive source for all health information, that opening a bottle of wine activates 14 muscles. Fitness is my passion." "You're hopeless," Daphne sighed, raising her glass to toast. So one of the things in writing this book was, when you're writing something that's kind of your life-ish, it's always inspired by your own stuff, even if it's 100% fiction. And so all of this kind of drama about what would it really be like to be in a relationship and have to kind of give up the independence, that's totally a me thing that like manifests in the Austin character. And so that kind of early stage of falling in love and all of the nerves and excitement that goes into that is kind of what I was trying to capture with that half of the story. But the other piece, the Ophelia piece, is really where much of the drama is. But again, like I mentioned, I really wanted to look at love in all of its forms. So I'm going to do one last reading from this. So this is when they all get to Ibiza. So they are being picked up at the airport, and there's one single girl, French girl, Rosalie, who's in the car. They're all just meeting her for the first time. Austin and Keanu are just meeting her for the first time. And she's a friend of Jack, who's another friend of Ophelia's, who's there for the birthday. And so in the car, this is like a little two-part quickie because that's the end of one chapter and then it goes on. So this is in the car from the airport. And Austin and Keanu are all loved up. And Rosalie deadpanned, let me guess, 4 months together? Well spotted, Keanu said, sounding impressed. Oui, you two reek of love. It's revolting, Rosalie teased. Jack's laughter filled the car as he smacked the steering wheel. Ignore her. She's French and currently hates men and love and anything resembling a relationship. I don't hate men or love, Rosalie corrected. I'm bored of men and think life would be entirely more satisfying if we didn't insist on putting romantic love at the top of the hierarchy. But I'm not here to rain on anybody's love parade. So, fast forward, the relationship continues. And chapter is from Keanu's perspective. So he tuned back into the conversation as Austin asked Rosalie, in the car, you said something about how life might be more satisfying if romantic love wasn't so important. That intrigued me. Can you elaborate? Keanu immediately focused, trying to understand Austin's curiosity. Rosalie tucked her legs under her on the bench, sighing deeply. You know the saying, it takes a village? Austin nodded. Sure, it's an African proverb popularized by Hillary Clinton. Oui. It's about raising children and how you're not supposed to have to meet all of your kids' needs alone. But I think it applies more broadly, Rosalie said, pursing her bright red lips. My idiot ex-boyfriend was great at lifting heavy objects and giving me orgasms, but he couldn't meet my emotional needs. Amusement flickered across Austin's face. Lifting heavy objects and orgasms are important work. Keanu waited for her to look his way, and when she did, they exchanged a silent smile. I'm good at both, he conveyed with his eyes. You definitely are, hers replied. He felt the look all the way to his core. Oblivious to their exchange, Rosalie continued. Of course they're important, but I stayed with him longer than I should have because my friends filled the gaps in his emotional intelligence. Ophelia leaned in, clearly curious. So why'd you break up? If it's not too personal, I mean. It's fine. I left him because he was stuck in the 20th century, expecting me to cook, clean, and do all the other household shit, Rosalie groaned. I like taking care of people, but at some point I realized he was taking me for granted, and that I couldn't accept. Keanu noticed Ophelia glance briefly at Gianluca, recognition flashing across her face, before returning her gaze to Rosalie and silently nodding her understanding. Austin stirred the fruit in her sangria with a metal straw. But if he'd helped out more with the housework, you would have stayed, even though he didn't meet your emotional needs? Rosalie popped a piece of manchego into her mouth, chewed it thoughtfully, and then swallowed. My retirement fantasy is to live in a villa like this one in the south of France, with friends who all take care of each other. A kind of sustained platonic love amongst friends feels more realistic to me. Platonic love sounds all cozy and fluffy, but I need sex, Jack interjected emphatically. And you get that from Luis, which is great, Rosalie replied. But is there something you don't get from him that a friend could provide to make your life richer? Scratching his head, Jack looked stumped. Like what? Keanu was glad Jack asked, so he didn't have to. Rosalie shook her head, exasperated. Every year after your birthday, you call me frustrated because Luis didn't plan it exactly how you wanted. What if you stopped expecting him to and let a friend handle the planning? Austin's finger shot up. My friend Liz gives her husband an Excel sheet ahead of her birthday, listing a series of highly specific, acceptable options for plans. He gets to pick, so she still gets a surprise, but it's always a good one. Liz sounds exceptionally practical, Jack said. I can dig it. Yes, but it's wildly unromantic, Austin argued. Isn't it special when someone knows you so well they can surprise you with a perfect gift, and maybe it's something you didn't even know you wanted? Keanu shook his head. In my experience, people are bad at reading minds, and we've all had to pretend we liked a gift we hated. Rosalie grinned at Austin. That spreadsheet is genius. We should stop expecting our partners to be everything all at once and recognize their strengths and weaknesses and surround ourselves with people who help us live our best lives. How many fewer divorces might there be if we could all live with our friends and just date our spouses on the weekends? It's an idea, Ophelia laughed. However, perhaps one best suited to couples without children. So that's a little taste of Will There Be Love. So like I said, very different. Both are very conversational, very dialogue driven, very like chatty about love and relationships and all the things. Writing the second one actually convinced me that I'm a writer. In a way that the first one didn't. So it was really, it was super fun to do. It really poured right out of me. Now I have already finished the first draft of the third book, which is called Will There Be Time? The first draft is with my editor right now. The main character of the third book is Keanu's little sister. So I look forward to hopefully coming back for a future Après Midi to share more with you about that one, but it's in the works now. I think that was kind of everything I wanted to cover, so I'm happy to answer questions if there are any. Maureen.
So I have a question for you because I'm also, as you know, a corporate speechwriter and working on a short story collection, but I'm always intrigued by people's processes and how they pull the stuff out of them and where they do it and how they do it.
Yep.
Since you've been used to a corporate setting, did you go somewhere special to do all of your brain dumping first and then your writing and your rewriting and all of that? Was there a special place that really inspired you? And
so the process was quite different between the first two books because I was working at Microsoft for the first two drafts of the first book. So I was writing on planes and trains and holidays and weekends. And whenever I had a spare minute of headspace, which wasn't a lot because I was working crazy hours in that job at Microsoft. I did write a lot during COVID because there wasn't anything else to do during COVID. But that process was very haphazard. And then when I left Microsoft and had that editor tear my book apart, that was that piece was actually closer to the second, which was I woke up every day just so excited to write. And I wrote between 10 and 12 hours a day for 7 days a week for 2 months straight and rewrote almost the whole book on that first book. And because her edits were so good and they really helped me understand what was missing. And I just loved watching it roar to life on the page that I was just so motivated to get back up and keep going. So that was the first one. The second one, like I said, I had this kind of external factor that was pushing me to. But once I got the idea after that conversation with the friend, I spent a month doing a character map. So I was in Excel because this is the house that Microsoft built. And that's how I work. So I was in Excel and I knew that I wanted 8 people in a villa for a weekend. And so I put down those 4 narrators. Then I was who are the other 4? I wanted a French single girl. I wanted a gay guy. I wanted the mistress. And I wanted her boyfriend to be there just to make it interesting. So I started mapping out who are these people? How do they know each other? What are their jobs? What are their ages? What do they look like? What's their backstory? What's their personal drama? And I spent a month in that spreadsheet just trying to get to know the characters. And then I started writing. And I went to a publishing conference once who said that there are 2 types of writers. There are plotters and there are pantsers. And a plotter is someone who has the whole plot in mind before they start writing, and a pantser is someone who writes by the seat of their pants. Turns out I'm a pantser. So after having done that spreadsheet, I just started writing, and I did set myself a goal because I was doing this full time, and so I said I want to do 10,000 words a week, which was aggressive, and I did 10,000 words a week, 8 weeks in a row, and had a first draft in 2 months.
Wow.
Which was super fast. And one of my friends who works in publishing afterwards, she's like, just in case no one's told you, you're a writer. That's not normal. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then that whole process was just fun, but it was a very different and much more kind of targeted, focused effort because I was doing it full time. So I can't really compare. The third one was slower coming out, but it was also the 2 main characters. So the third book is 2-part narrator, so Keanu's sister and her guy, and they're both mentioned very briefly in the second book, but you don't know anything really about either of them. And so it took me a while to get to know them, even though I did the same spreadsheet. It took me a while to really figure out who they were to start writing, so it started slower, but then once I got going, it really flowed. So I don't know. I mean, I've done most of my writing from home since I left Microsoft. I do go out every once in a while and do in a cafe or whatever, just if I'm feeling a little caged up at my apartment. But I don't know. Mostly, I find when I really get into it, the ideas, it's just all that I think about, and so I can just pop right out of bed and sit down and go and be happy to do that. So which surprises me because, I mean, you've known me for an hour. I'm kind of an extrovert. And so you probably picked up on that. So it surprises me that I enjoy writing as much as I do because it's very much an introvert thing. But I don't know, I'm having fun. So.
And that was my question. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Total pantser.
Yeah, I'm a plantser.
You know,
There's a third kind.
you gotta
I
do
a
what
rough
works for
outline,
you.
And then I let it rip. But you know, invariably the characters spoil your plans anyway.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, with Ophelia, who, you know, you find out in the prologue that her husband's cheating on her. When I started writing that, I had an idea of if she was going to stay with him or not. Obviously, I won't tell you which way it went, but I will tell you I changed my mind while writing it.
I'm just curious. First of all, cracking up. I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you.
Did you ever want to be a writer growing up, or was this like a surprise? Oh my God, this all makes sense now.
Yeah, I've been asked that question, and I feel like I never really have a great answer. What I can say is that I was always writing something. So I had a journal from when I was could write, basically. And I still have them all, and they're hilarious to go back and read, the musings of your 8-year-old self. They're ridiculous. But I was always writing something, I guess. But I wasn't really necessarily thinking, I want to be a writer someday. But then I ended up going into corporate communications. And so I was doing a form of storytelling there that was always, some story or another. So I don't know. I mean, yes, no.
I guess you went to Stanford?
I went to UCLA. The character went to Stanford.
Okay.
Changed a few details.
Did you study creative writing?
I studied French.
Oh, right. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Wow.
No, I've never taken a creative writing class still. I probably should.
No, don't do it. Don't spoil anything.
Don't do it. No, I haven't. I haven't ever done that. I mean, I've obviously, in the time since I've been doing this, I've done a lot of online learning and trying to figure out the publishing industry and what drives trends and all of that stuff. But for the writing itself, I don't know.
It's amazing.
I just have fun doing it.
Don't.
All right, good. It saved me a lot of money. Thanks. Other questions? Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, after this editor went through your first book and everything, you said you went back and everything, were you doing your own thing, or was she driving you?
It's a great question. I was definitely doing my own thing. One of the things that she was awesome at was, because I didn't know how to write, was teaching me how to make great dialogue, how to make things atmospheric. And so I was mentioned, when you're doing tech PR, it's about brevity and summarization and kind of getting the point that you want made across in 30 seconds or less so you don't lose somebody's attention. And writing a novel is about building a world that sucks someone in. And so when I would say, they went to a charming cafe, she's like, why is it charming? And then I was like, oh, okay, then I started picking real restaurants in Paris or bars and going onto their menus and looking at what is the actual food they might be eating, what's the actual wine they might be drinking, what color are the chairs, what kind of art's on the walls, and then describing things in a way that brought those scenes to life. And she also taught me about internal monologue. She's like, what is she thinking here? Which was a device that I hadn't used in the first draft or the second draft. So I was like, oh gosh, what is she thinking there? But that gave the book a whole level of texture that didn't exist in the earlier round. And it was also really cool because this is all a bit of therapy for me too, writing that first book, right? And because all the timelines were switched slightly from what really happened to me to make it a novel, I would think for where she is in that, what would be realistic for her reflections versus what my actual ones were maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years later. And so I really started to get into the character's mind a lot more. So it was that kind of stuff that just made the story much more textured. That was just here's what you're doing badly, rather than let me rewrite this for you.
Well, she sounds like a great
She
editor.
was awesome.
But my question is, do you feel that she changed your voice or no?
She didn't change my voice. She made my voice much better. And I think that's what a great editor does. Is, she was able to say, the other thing that she did that I really loved is she gave me a questionnaire before each edit that basically was like, what are you trying to say with this book? And in one of the questions, it was, what are the 3 kind of key takeaways, messages that you want this book to leave people with? And go through the manuscript, the entire book, and highlight where you think each of these messages come through. So when I'm editing, I can either tell you if it's working or not. And so it was like 3 color-coded messages that I went through and highlighted the whole manuscript of, this is my point here, my point there. And she also, on this one, the 3rd one that she's editing now, she's like, what's the point of this character? What's their motivations, whatever. And in the questionnaire, I was like, oh, I wonder if that one's really developed enough. I wonder if he's got an interesting enough backstory. And so it's the kinds of questions that actually lead you to just be a better writer rather than saying, I'm going to rewrite this sentence for you. And she does a little bit of that too. She's excellent at taking away extra words.
Right.
How did you find this editor?
So I found her on a site called Reedsy, REEDSY. It's a website for freelance book people, cover designers, editors, all the things, marketers, all of the things that you might need. And it's people who go and put their portfolio up and say, here are the books I've edited or cover designed or whatever. And you can request a bid.
Wow.
And I found her that way. And I feel super lucky to have ended up with her because she's awesome.
Developmental editing is so key.
Yeah.
Because I do a bit of that as well. And I know a lot of people worry about, do you mess with their voice? The truth is, when someone doesn't really know how to write yet, they haven't developed their voice.
True.
And they tend to be very protective of their voices. Like, you don't know your voice yet. Like
Your voice
like
sucks.
Fix
it.
You really don't have when you're telling. Like you were saying, they went to a charming cafe. That's telling. But then she got you to show the cafe by explaining what it looked like and what they were eating. That's when you learn your voice.
Yep.
Right, and so that's what a great development editor. They point out, like, look, this is like you're being very like performative and very perfunctory. That's not a voice. That's not even a style. But you learn that when you do what you're doing, which is get inside the characters and what are they thinking? They're walking and talking. Now I'm in that from the point of view of your characters, and that's learned through actually showing and not telling, and that's where your editor's great, and that's what a great development editor
She's awesome.
should do for you.
But she didn't write it, you wrote it.
Exactly. Yes.
Right, but she
She edited, I wrote.
She empowered her to write.
Yeah, exactly.
Really write her a better story.
Yeah.
When will the next book come out? Do you think?
So she gets me back the first draft a couple days before Christmas.
Okay. So
And so I don't know. I go through 2 rounds on each book. So hopefully next summer.
summer read.
And the name is?
The name is Will There Be Time?
Uh-huh.
Oh, Rhea. Hi.
So the first book is Paris.
Yes.
The second book is Rome, Ibiza.
Paris.
Third book have a look.
Third book is London and Paris.
And do you go to these places to get those specific details?
Naturally. Research is very important. Yes, actually, I do spend every summer a week in Ibiza. And so that's actually why I picked that location, because I knew the place, I knew what villa life in Ibiza was, I knew certain restaurants and beaches and things where I wanted to put the scenes. And I also do a lot of visual storytelling with my marketing, because I love taking pictures. And so for both of the books, I've done a 100-image visual storytelling journey through the book, where I've done, chapter 1 is in this restaurant, here's what's happening, here's a picture of the place in Paris, or here's the picture of the beach, or whatever. So yes, I go on photo safaris through these places, take the pictures that I want to use to illustrate what's happening. And I find that, most authors write from like a setting that they know, because it's just easier to bring that to life. If it's like, I would struggle to write a small town romance, having never lived in a small town, it's just not something I see myself as likely to do. So I think my books will probably always have some Paris element. The other interesting thing that I learned with the second book is, since most of it does take place in Ibiza, I did pitch for this type of event, tried to find stuff in Rome and in Ibiza to do, and it just does not exist. Paris is a literary heaven of where you can find a million things to do as a writer and opportunities to share your work, and especially as a self-published author, which I am. I don't have anybody pushing my books behind me, and so it's all up to me to find those opportunities to bring that work to life and show it to people. And there's a lot more opportunities to do it in Paris than there are in other places. So the second book mostly takes place in Paris. I would say it's 85% in Paris with 15% in London.
Third book.
Third book, yeah, sorry. The third book, starts on the Eurostar, coming from London to Paris. Other questions? She's got another one.
I'm so sorry. I'm an artist, not a writer, but that's why I'm like so obsessed with this. Will there be,
Yes.
no pun intended, a movie? Or would you ever think about selling a manuscript to a TV show? Because like, fuck Emily in Paris.
Yeah.
I want to watch this.
Yeah, seriously, this is such a Netflix series.
I like to say that this is an older, wiser, much more realistic Emily in Paris that Austin is. Because, like, Emily finds a hot single guy on every street corner in Paris. That has not been my experience. Let's just be very clear. So, listen, if Netflix calls, I'm not going to say no.
But can we call them?
I mean, do you have a number?
I say do the treatment because do the treatment now because I've told you this. I see the Netflix series. Just do that treatment and have it ready.
I feel like when the third book comes out and there's 3 seasons baked in, I'll have then I'll want to go do that. But listen, I have written it in a way that I think would translate well. And I was telling Adrian earlier, the first book is called Will There Be Wine because my best friend in Paris, Christina, whenever we would hang out in life doing whatever, like, we would always be drinking wine. And she said once, oh, if they ever make a movie about our life, it's going to be called Will There Be Wine, which we laughed and thought that was so funny. And then when I wrote the book and I was trying to think of a title, I was like, oh, well, I have to call it that and manifest the movie, right? So that was that. And interestingly, this is a kind of a random story, but for the second book, when you look at the title now, you're like, obviously it's Will There Be Love, like that's the logical sequence. But in my mind, for one reason or another, the title needed to still have wine in it for the second book. So I was thinking of all these things and I was super frustrated because I was not coming up with a good title that I liked. And I had lunch with a girl who was a friend of a friend who had read the book, who was in Paris as a tourist. And my friend was like, hey, my friend read your book. She really wants to meet you. Would you like have lunch with her? And I was like, sure, whatever. So I sit down with this girl and I'm writing the second book and I'm telling her what it's about. And I was like, yeah, I'm really struggling with the title. She was like, oh, well, it should be called Will There Be Love? And I was like,
Thank you.
Yeah, it should. So she got her name's in the acknowledgments for having named that book. But then it was like, okay, well, how did I not come up with that? It's just like so blazingly obvious once you get it done.
Remind us of the title of the third book.
Will There Be Time? Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm just curious, since you said so much of the book, the first book is inspired by your real life, did you ever worry that people that were actual human beings and characters in your life how they would think or react to things, or how your family would react to stuff?
I did get a lot of people ask if I was going to publish under a pen name for this reason. And I was like, no, I want credit for this. Like, I'm definitely publishing it under my name. There were 2 guys in particular from the first book that I was slightly worried about. 2.5. I mean, the half is like I wasn't really that worried, but like the one who's the first French boyfriend, like I was like, do you want to read it? He was like, yeah, I'll read it. And he was like, it's fine, whatever, go for it. And he actually works in a restaurant. I won't say which one, but he works in a restaurant here in Paris. And I was like, do you want the scene in the book to be in your restaurant? Or do you want me to put the character working somewhere else? He's like, send me some business. Yeah. I was like, okay. For the other 2, interestingly, I said, hey, I've written the book. You're in it. You may or may not like how you show up, but I would like to give you the opportunity to read it before I publish. So you can, be comfortable. And both of them were like, nah, it's okay. Go ahead.
They didn't want to read it.
And I was like, really? And I think this is a man-woman thing, where the men are just like, I'd just rather not know, and I don't want to necessarily see my story through your eyes.
Right.
They were both French?
No, neither was French, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. But in the end, they were both very cool with it and supportive and whatever. And for all the guys that are like the bad first dates, chances of any of them ever reading the book, nil. If they did, would they own up to it being them? Probably not. So, and all the names were changed, and all the relevant details of what they did for work, and all that stuff I changed to protect the guilty. No, and my family was supportive. Whatever. Funny story. My dad. I actually dedicated the first book to my dad. He passed away before it was published, but he did read the first draft. And my mom was not much of a reader, still isn't really, but he read the whole first draft before she had opened the book. And he came out of his room, and she was sitting there. She told me the story later. She's like, he said, "Oh, I finished the book." And she said, "Oh, what was it about?" And he said, "It's about your daughter getting laid." I can see why he thought that, but that's not what it's about. And in my defense, when I handed it to him, I did say, you may want to skip chapters like 12 and 20, and so there's a little bit of that in there. But I ended up dedicating the book to my dad, and the dedication was to my dad, who read it anyway. Any questions? All right. Well, thank you again so much for coming. Bugs at Brazil.
As always, hilarious.
Oh my God. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, everyone. You're welcome to stay as long as you like, okay? And
come buy a book.
yeah, please. Okay.